Republicans are looking to use the Defund the Police movement from the summer in hopes of maintaining Senate control. It proved to be effective in swing races all across the country, and now conservatives are hoping that it has the same effects in the state of Georgia. However, this is an issue that shouldn't merely be politicized, because outside of election years, this could also affect the lives of many people. So we're going to break down this issue from multiple angles, beginning with John Catsimatidis, the chairman of the Federal Law Enforcement Foundation and a former Republican mayoral candidate in the state of New York. So, John, I appreciate you coming on tonight. I know that you are frequently working not only with Republicans, but also with the law enforcement in New York City as well. Perhaps there's no city in the entire country that has a culture around their police union the same way that the city of New York does. So I want to ask you, how has the Defund the Police movement really affected morale there?
It's really hurt the police department. There's been 2,700 retirements. That's double the normal retirements. We're losing the bone of the great police officers that have been there for 20 years or 30 years, and they reached a point where they said enough is enough, and that it's going to hurt. You know, when you lose experienced detectives and experienced chiefs and inspectors, it's going to hurt, and it's going to take time to retrain the new recruits.
Yeah. And, you know, it doesn't just affect the police officers. I think that's something that a lot of people get wrong about this issue, because when you're taking away funding from police officers, yes, it does affect them, but it also affects those individuals' families, and then it also affects the residents of whatever city they're being trained to protect. Because if you're taking away the money from the training and the money that you're able to pay these people, presumably you're not giving the type of incentive for people to get involved in the police force. You're not getting the same caliber of an individual who wants to, of course, then join the department. Is that correct?
That is correct, but a city has fooled themselves because of all the rioting and the problems in our streets. The amount of overtime that was paid for the current police officers exceeded the $1 billion that they wanted to save.
Right. I mean, that right there is within itself problematic. And that's something that I've heard, too, from multiple police departments across the country, is that sometimes the money isn't even being properly allocated. Sometimes it's going to things that aren't necessarily helping the people on the ground or the police officers themselves. Sometimes it's lobbying efforts, or sometimes it's the direct result of politicians in the state. And I know that that is an allegation that's been made in New York, whether it's the governor or Mayor Bill de Blasio. Do you think that's the case there?
What I've said about the state and the city, they call themselves progressive, but that's not the right word. That's false advertising. They're not progressives. They are regressives. They're taking New York City backwards. And we're going back in time to when we had crime in our streets, and we had to worry about our cars being broken in because there was nobody over there to protect them.
And we don't even just have to take your word for it. I mean, during the summer, there were statistics coming out laying out exactly what you said, that police officers were less willing to enter the force, or enter the industry, I should say, becoming a police officer within itself. But retirements were also up. And then we also saw, parallel to all of this happening, crime was increasing. And a lot of people were saying Bill de Blasio isn't enforcing the laws, that he's not following through, or at least creating an environment where crime and violence was not approved. It was not allowed to take place in the city. So do you think that there needs to be a stronger response from critics of people like Bill de Blasio and Governor Cuomo?
Well, on December 31, January 1, there was a new law passed called the No Bails law. In other words, city was the safest city in the world under Rudy Giuliani, under Bloomberg. And why? If you carried a gun, you got 1 year minimum sentence. 1 year minimum sentence. Well, guess what? I had the deputy commissioner on my show about 2 weeks ago, and there was 1,400 gun arrests in the city of New York in the last 3-4 months. You know how many of them are in jail?
I presume
None.
Not a lot. Yeah,
Zero.
There you go.
Zero. They get a desk appearance ticket. I call it a parking ticket. Now, if you have a 1 year minimum sentence and you get a parking ticket, a desk appearance ticket, how many of those people you think showed up in court for their day in court?
Yeah, I'd assume it's a similar number. Zero. Yeah.
Zero. I mean, this is the craziest thing in the world. You can't be stupider than what they're doing.
So,
and these are the people. See, and then on top of that, they emptied out Rikers Island, which is our big jail. We used to have 10,000 people in there. And I don't mind if they let out the people with 1 ounce of marijuana or a dispute, but they let out the people that were carrying guns, carrying knives, and they're in the streets, and they're in the streets hurting our citizens. And you arrest them, they're back out in 3 hours.
Right.
I mean, well, where's the safety? And that is why New York City is continuing to lose people. 300,000 people have fled to Long Island. People have fled to Florida. You know, it's like, come on down to Florida. We're safer here.
Yeah.
And the weather's better besides.
Yeah, that's also an additional perk as well. Lower taxes, too, if I may add that in there as well. But when it comes to the Republican response...
On top of that, they're going to raise taxes. On top of that.
Yeah.
Now, they are forcing all the stores to be closed. And on January 1, the real estate taxes are due. How are those people going to pay the real estate taxes on their bars, on their restaurants, when they're not allowed to open?
Right.
Where's the constitutional right on that?
No, I think it's an excellent point. And before I let you go, too, I want to get your response to this. What should conservatives be making against that argument? I know that the defund the police slogan within itself has not been politically advantageous for Democrats, but should Republicans be offering a different solution? Should they be coming out and saying we want to support the police with a more substantive type of policy?
You want to keep your city safe. You want to be able to call 911 and get a response. Then you have to vote for Republicans. There's not a single Democrat that is standing up against the crazy Democrats. There's a lot of common sense Democrats, but none of them have the courage to stand up and say it's wrong what those guys are doing, what the AOCs of the world are doing. It's absolutely wrong.
Yeah, and I think that's an argument, too, that sells itself. People in New York see what's happening in their streets right now. They don't like violence. I don't care what anybody says. They don't like rioting. They see what's happening, and they're going to reject that every single time. But John, go ahead.
I grew up in Harlem. I talked to the people in Harlem. The people in Harlem want to dial 911 and get help.
Yeah.
So it's false advertising.
No, you're exactly right. But John Catsimatidis, we have to leave it there. I appreciate you coming on the show tonight, breaking down this issue because it's an important one for a lot of people's lives. Thank you.